Hey guys, it's ryandrew. I'm back with another one of these brush inking demos of a fantastic 4 illustration by Jack Kirby, the master. This is my final inked version of his illustration. I really love the composition and the motion here. So let's get started and I'll show you how I did this. So first up, I'll show you guys the tools I used. This is a paper I've been using for these. It's a 75-pound paper. It's cream colored on one side, a little bit darker on the back. It holds up pretty well. It goes through the printer pretty easily, and I just print like a light color version of the pencils on top of it, and it holds up pretty well for ink. I'm using my trusty size 1 Series 7 Kolinsky Sable brush by Winsor Newton. It's really good for this 8.5 by 11 size illustration. You get a nice crisp line, but also it holds enough ink. I'm sticking with the Speedball Super Black Indie ink that I've used for the other illustration demo videos. When you use it with a brush, it dries matte black and it holds up pretty well to watercolor and other things like that. So I'm happy with this. I'll stick with this. And I also have a jar of water that I use to wash my brush out periodically, just to clean out the ink and make sure that it doesn't dry too much into the brush. Very important. You don't have to use this, but I've been using a small shot glass just to hold it while I'm inking. I pour the ink into it and then I can dip it and wipe it off on the edge of the glass. And I don't have to get the plastic ink while messy or anything like that. It's just handy for me. And I also use this artist glove. You can get these online pretty cheap. They're pretty handy. They keep you from smudging the ink, and I think that it gives my lines a lot nicer flowing line to it because your hand kind of glides across the paper better when you're wearing this than if you weren't. These are good to use. What I'll do first here is I'll warm up before I do the actual inking. And what I like to do is take a scrap piece of paper and do what's called tapering the brush point. I'll roll out the ink onto this paper and try to shape the brush point into a nice fine line so I can get a nice fine line for inking. That's crucial. This is just a warm-up before you start inking. I like to just practice my lines and practice getting a nice, flowing, single, crisp line. I want to make sure that I'm inking these lines very smoothly and not as jittery. I want to follow the line very closely. Do this for about 5 or 10 minutes before you start. So I've got my illustration, my pencils on the board here. I pour out a little bit of ink into the little cup I've got, and then I'll taper the brush point and try to get that excess ink off the brush, get a nice crisp point on the brush, and then it's time for inking. So my method for this is I start with the faces. Do the faces first. It's a lot easier in case you mess up. Sometimes you do. So I find it easier to start with the faces, get the emotion down, get the personality of the character down first. That's really important. And at this size, it's very important that I am focusing on using the tip of the brush to get these fine details in the face. It's really hard to do, but it's worth it. You need to focus on capturing the details and not just mashing into it with the rest of that brush. So I will do the faces first, and then I'll try to work my way around the composition and do the contour lines. And once I've done the contour lines, the faces for all the characters, I'll start to go in and do the interior lines and then the large areas of black for each character. For this composition, because there's 4 characters here, I really try to treat this kind of like an assembly line, I guess. Like just each step, each process, doing the faces first, doing the contour lines, the interior lines, then like the large areas of black, the shadow. I tried to go from character to character, for each of these steps. That's just the way that I do it. Make sure I'm catching everything, make sure that I'm treating everything equally while I'm inking, so I get the whole composition in mind as I'm working. So the Fantastic Four was the first superhero team created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. It was as much Jack Kirby's creation as it was Stan Lee's creation. Jack Kirby's the one who basically gave life to these characters and all of their unique designs that have stuck with us for the last 60 years. So you've got Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, you've got Invisible Woman, Sue Storm, Sue Richards, The Thing, Ben Grimm, and also the Human Torch, Johnny Storm, right? This is like the original power team, super team, superhero characters. And they're just, you go through the old stories and they're just really cool stories. I like the cosmic element of it a lot, which Jack Kirby kind of expanded on a lot and brought a lot of that imagery into it. The Kirby crackle, the cosmic characters, the villains, all those kind of like gigantic monsters that they all have to team up and fight together. That's where this all kind of came from, Fantastic Four. I wanted to do this illustration over some of the more popular Fantastic Four illustrations and covers from the comics because I thought this one had a lot of unique things going on. Has a really dynamic composition for sure. You got the Thing basically swinging Mr. Fantastic around like a whip or a lasso or something. You've got Johnny Flame down here flying around the bottom. It's like basically wherever you end up on the composition, it kind of draws your eyes up and then back down again. It's a really cool way to show off all of their unique abilities and powers. Although I would say that, Sue seems like she's kind of left out here in the illustration. She's not really using her powers of invisibility or anything here. She's just in the background. That's the only thing I would have to say about this is she kind of feels like she gets left out here. Other than that, it's just really cool. It's really dynamic. It's a fun illustration. It does a lot without there being a lot of detail and a lot of busy background work. So it stands on its own, I think. I had to actually extend some of the image here at the bottom, their feet, their hands. For some reason, the image is just cut off when I downloaded the image. So I just filled in the boots a little bit. I don't think it was that much of a stretch to imagine what that was supposed to be like. I will point out that Jack Kirby really took his time to get the details right for each of the characters. So each of the different characters have different textures or qualities going on here, except for Sue Storm's. But I mean, she gets the nice flowing, curvy, sensuous lines because she's a woman. The rest of the characters, they're more in line with their abilities. So you've got Mr. Fantastic, and you just see the way that he's rendered with all of the stretching and just the folds in his suit and his costume and how dynamically stretched his body is throughout this whole image. And then you go down to the Thing, and it's just very sharp, angular lines on his skin, all the different facets of his skin. He's rendered very blocky, and, there's a lot of shadow just showing you those harsh, hard surfaces of his rocky skin. So that is how the Thing is rendered. And then when you get to Johnny Storm, he is treated kind of like they're trying to imply the burning of fire without it being kind of like burnt up. So there's mass there, or there's like some type of form or mass there in his body, but they're just showing you that motion and a little bit of those flames that are coming out of his body mass. Then you've got that nice trail of flame kind of following him as he goes there. And that's how they rendered him back in the 60s, to show with just black and white line art how to best show something that's on fire flying around. It's really cool texture for Johnny Storm here. Again, this is contour line and some interior lines, but it's mostly contour lines. So I'm just taking my time to make sure that I get all the different crests and curves and motion of that flame really nice and crisp so that it's matching what's there in the pencils. And when I get down to do the interior line for Johnny, I make sure that I'm following those lines really accurately as much as I can. Okay, so once I'm done with a step or a process, I will just make sure I wash out my brush, rinse it out, get the ink out of there as much as I can, dry it off on paper towel, kind of pat it dry. Don't push too hard into the paper towel. Get it dry enough and then re-dip your brush in ink. Do the whole tapering process again. Make sure you get that crisp point on the brush again, and then go back at it. Again, you want to make sure that you get the excess ink out before you start brushing. You want to ink with the tip of your brush, the brush point. That is crucial, or else you'll start to mash down too hard and get too much ink out. And it's always harder to fix or work with when you got too much ink than it is to add it subtly and add it over and over until you get it to the point where you want it. That's just something to learn that I'm learning still, is just the right technique to kind of start that process every time you keep inking. And right now I'm just going through again, character by character. I'm doing the interior line. I'm also doing some of the shadows as I go as well for the different characters. For Mr. Fantastic, I wanted to pay really close attention to the stretch lines and make those nice and crisp and smooth so that they sell that motion going on. It's a challenge to keep the lines straight and smooth. It's really important for him, and I really wanted to focus on this section in his middle here and not make this a solid band. I wanted this to be feathered a little because that kind of adds to the motion and the stretching going on here. Yes, I go character by character. I fill in, I'll do the interior line here, and then I'll fill in the solid sections of black. And if you think about it, you know, it's a very brilliant idea for, I don't know if it was Stan Lee's idea or Jack Kirby's idea, that each of these characters basically embodies a different element. Earth, water, wind, fire. You know, you've got Mr. Fantastic. He's kind of like fluid water. Obviously, the Thing is earth. Johnny Flame is fire, obviously. And then, Sue Storm is like air or wind. But it really helps set these characters apart. This is why these characters are so iconic, is because they have unique abilities. They've got unique personalities. And their character design adds to those unique character traits without having them be too close together. It's so easy for you to differentiate the different characters in this team because they all have different abilities, they all look different, and it's like their shapes and their outlines and their design is recognizable really easily. I will say I think inking the Thing is probably the most thing I liked about this illustration because he's got so many different facets and really cool, interesting lines that it's just fun. It's fun to ink and get all those lines captured here. Another good thing to point out here is the good, what would you call this, blocking or spotting your blacks is the term I think they use in comics, where you have sections of black dark ink and you have that juxtaposed with spots that are like lighter in the amount of ink that you're using. So, the Thing's, his shorts and the bottom side of his arm are like more in shadow and darker ink areas, and that kind of contrasts with the flame coming off of Johnny Storm there. So you can really see that detail or that outline of his flame trail a lot better because it's right on top of the black area of the Thing's shorts and his arm. It's a really cool way that Kirby plotted this out before he started going. This is what you kind of strive for with composition. You try to make it readable, you try to make it understandable, and also very interesting for people to look at and be able to understand what's going on when they look at the composition. And it was really important and crucial for me to follow these lines as much as I could and not try to have them touch at all on the interior of Johnny here. Because it really, again, you see how these lines, they're defining the form and they're implying or they're telling you that his body is like basically, it's on fire, it's mass, but it's not completely solid. And those motion lines just follow his form really nicely. And that's it. The final thing I'll do here is I will put my signature on here after Jack Kirby, and then I will follow Jack Kirby's signature there at the end. And that's it. That's the final touch. And there you have it, the Fantastic Four by Jack Kirby. I had a lot of fun inking this illustration, and it was pretty challenging, honestly. I just wanted to make sure I was following the lines as close as possible because there's a lot of motion going on in this composition, and there's a lot of texture in things that he's using to differentiate the different characters. So I wanted to make sure I was taking my time to get everything as close as possible. Well, thanks for watching, guys. I hope that you found this interesting and that you learned something from this, just like I'm still learning how to ink and do my best on these. Hope that it inspires you to make your own art and to do your own stuff as well. I'm so grateful for all of you guys who have subscribed and have been watching these. It's a lot of fun to make these, and I definitely plan on making more of these demo videos in the new year. Leave me a comment below. Let me know which Jack Kirby character you'd like to see me ink next. I'll definitely take your suggestions into consideration. Can't promise anything, but I do have a lot more that I'd like to do. I just want to see what you guys would like to see next, and I'll see if I can make it happen. Again, I'm so thankful for all of you guys who have watched these videos, who have subscribed. And if you haven't subscribed, why not? It's free. Subscribe, like, share this with your friends, with other people who like comics and Jack Kirby. I hope that you all have a wonderful 2024, and let's make the most of it. Let's make some art. So until next time, have a great day, and as always, God bless.